What's up everyone and welcome back to Reload Reacts episode 53. My name is Trey and today we are going to look through r/MaliciousCompliance, the subreddit for those who are technically following all of their given directions, but not the spirit of what they actually mean. This first post is by Not a Bad Guy 3. Got told to F off by my assignment group, and that's just what I did. I do a computer science degree at university. We had a group project which was set out in two stages. Part A involved making an application, writing a report about it, 50-50 split. Part B, we got feedback from Part A and had to improve upon it. In total, it was 100% of a module. It is also important to note that there is a group contribution report, GCR, where each student puts in how much they think each student has done. I was in a randomly selected group of 4 others. We each picked parts of the work that we wanted to do. I was apparently the group's most confident coder, so I assigned myself about half of the code, and finish up my work in about the first 3 weeks, and work on other projects I have for other modules. Then soon after I finished my work, the others asked me if I can do their parts of the code too. I initially protest, as I have my other coursework due, but eventually I say fine, but so long as it's noted in the GCR, they all agree. I sweated out over the next 3 weeks or so alongside my other coursework. I contacted my module organizer explaining that I had done half of the work, and they suggested if people weren't going to pull their weight to leave the group taking my code with me and do the report myself. That would mean I would need to work flat out to produce the report and probably would mess it up, and I didn't want that. The deadline was in about a week, and honestly I could not be asked. And then I got asked to do some of the report too, because they didn't understand how the code worked. By this point, I felt pretty used by them. Didn't really mind so long as I got the marks. All in all, I worked out that I had done the workload of 3 people. There was talk amongst the others of all writing that we each contributed 20% of the workload to make us look better as a team. I flatly refused. They exploded, calling me with every name under the sun, swearing at me, telling me to F off. I sent off my GCR with 60 for me and 10 each for the rest, and thought that was that. My module organizer then asked me if I had any proof of this, as they all put me at 0% and themselves at 25%. That's so ridiculous and frustrating. I'd worked my A off on this project, putting in 150 plus hours on the code, and another 50 plus on the diagrams and report, all while attending lectures 20 hours a week. Over 7 weeks, which if you do that maths, averages at an extra 4 hours a day. On top of all my other assignments and commitments etc, there was no way I was letting it slide. I emailed him back linking him to the GitHub I used to share the code with the team, and showed him that all of the commits were done by me, proving that I did all of it. And thankfully we did the whole report on Google Drive, so I could also see the history on the document, and send him screenshots of all the alterations made by me, proving that I wrote around 20% of the report also. He added it all up and made a special exception for my group, saying he would give me most credit for the work. I think I ended up with a 65 and they all get 11 for the whole coursework part A. They would need 69% to even pass the module. So it turned out I effed up a bit on the code, only getting about 50% of the marks with like a massive issue in it. Dumb me. For anyone interested, I didn't make an MVC structure correctly. But my report sections were near perfect. Spelling mistakes, a common thing I do, and formatting. There were a few glaring mistakes from the report that they had written, but other than that, not too bad. When they found out their marks, they started calling me up and emailing me and messaging me almost for about 3 hours. I was happily out at the time and didn't have my phone with me, so didn't respond. My module organizer sent an email explaining that they had lied and he had proof about it, so correcting the marks accordingly. When I got back to my phone, I screenshotted all the messages they had sent and recorded all the voicemails, including the ones they had sent previously, including multiple occasions where everyone in the group told me to F off. And F off I did. I sent all these screenshots and voicemails to my module organizer requesting that I leave my group, and understand that it is more work for me, but I'd rather not deal with that. He agreed and also escalated the messages to someone higher up. At this point I quit the group and decided to work on part B myself, taking all of my code with me, removing their access to all of it. I, of course, asked my module organizer first, and they said it was fine as it was my work, and if I was no longer in their group, the others couldn't submit it. I fixed the error in the code in about 2 weeks, then did the whole report from scratch, and added a load about the fix taking me about 7 weeks. I then get messages from the group to please come back, we really need you kind of stuff on the end few days of the assignment. They even offered to pay me. I screenshot it and sent it to the module organizer just to let him know what is happening and then just ignore them. I ended up submitting 2 weeks early for the deadline and got 100% on the whole section too, which is basically unheard of at university, especially by yourself for group work. Later that day, I get an email from a plagiarism and collusion officer. Not someone you ever want to get an email from. Oh no. Basically says I'm summoned to a hearing as an external body looked at both my group and my old group's coursework and thought it was very similar. I get the whole project that my group handed in and my own back as evidence so I can look and prepare my answer to their questions. I email my module organizer to ask if he supports me in this because basically they can punish all of you or one group, never nobody. He says yes, he supports me in this. Perfect. I prepare for this meeting by going through hundreds of comments I have made, while they had access to find the one that is most similar to it. I find a perfect match, 0 differences, not even a single character through the thousands of lines of code. So I turn up to this meeting, there is the VP of computing there, guy who could basically do whatever the heck he wants to us. My old group, when asked to present their answer as to why this happened, go on about how they did all of it by themselves, blah blah blah. You get the point, this goes on for about 10 minutes. Then I am asked to present my argument. I ask if I can share my screen. Yeah, okay, puzzled. So I share it. Show all the screenshots I took as some of the people in the meeting weren't aware that we knew each other, including them basically begging me to come back, offering money to, and as if this wasn't enough to convince them, I then showed me downloading a fresh version of what they submitted, and a fresh version of one of my comments on the GitHub, and running it through a trusted comparison software. I narrated this to explain what I was doing, just to be clear. Took a while, but came up as I knew it would be 0 differences. Everyone was stunned. One of the group members uttered, "but," and I just laughed, and was quickly asked to hang up as I was no longer involved. Turned out they had cloned one of my comments, and still had a copy on their laptop when I blocked their access, not being able to fix it at all, so just submitted it and hoped for the best. One of my friends who is friends with one from my old group asked what grade they got. They said that they failed the whole module as they got a 0 for the second section, giving them just 5.5% overall for the module. You needed 40 to pass, and would have to retake it over the summer, costing them and everyone in my old group their placement year jobs. After all, who wants someone who failed a module so badly and who was intellectually dishonest working for them? This meant that they all lost out on being paid $20,000 each for the year's work, which goes a long way for a uni student, while I happily get mine. That was insane. I'm glad he was able to prove it though. There were a lot of stories out there where it's not provable and the good person gets the rough end of the stick. Remember to save the evidence. I'm glad that GitHub and Google Drive was mentioned because that is a very good way to save evidence. Just in case. Also, just in case you need a backup as well, backups can be really important. I've used backups for this channel. Okay, this next post is by I Am a Simp for Obi-Wan. Interesting name. The city wanted me to take better care of my gardens, so I had them approved by the local Nature Conservation Association. The guys at Pro Revenge argued that it better belongs here, so here I am. My house is surrounded by 2 gardens. One in the front, facing the street, and one in the back, bordering my neighbour's gardens. When my parents and grandparents moved into our house 26 years ago, they planted a thick hedge around the entire property. They also installed a rose arch over the pathway to our front door, and my grandfather was always busy keeping up the garden, planting, weeding, keeping everything very tidy. My grandfather passed away in 2002, and after that, the garden was neglected for a few years, as my parents were still working and my brother and I were in university/school. But then, around 2005, my mum read something that we should plant stuff to help the bees, and she took over the gardens, planting lilac, I'm definitely gonna butcher this one, rhododendron, roses, and various berries. Later, we also decided to install raised garden beds with various kitchen herbs. That's pretty cool. My mum is now 70 years old and has officially given the house over to my brother and I, so that we won't be taxed on inheriting it when she dies. Since then, I've been sporadically taking care of the gardens. I like them in their wild shape with all the bees, birds, bumblebees, and butterflies flying around. In autumn, we get hedgehogs, and we've been visited by a fox recently, which sends my cats into a panic. Oh, that's so cool. Not the panicking cats part, but the fox part, that's so cool. Then recently, we received a letter from the city stating that our garden was interfering with the safety of the street because the hedge was overgrowing the pavement and contained poisonous berries which were a danger to children. Now, my brother trims the hedge every month to make sure nothing is overgrowing the pavement in any way, and while the berries are poisonous, to get to them you'd have to be quite resilient because they're surrounded by thorns. They are also known to be ideal food for some local birds. So I contacted our local Nature Conservation Association and asked if they would like to take a look at our gardens and maybe tell us if we could improve anything and make them even more nature friendly. They came, looked around, and then told us they rarely see gardens so in touch with nature. They approved our gardens as especially nature friendly and contacted the city to tell them that from their point of view, any changes would be considered unfriendly to nature, and since our city prides itself with once being one of the green capitals in our country, they had to budge. Don't mess with my gardens. I think that's really cool that they classified it as like better than normal. That's kind of cool. Top comment says, there was a guy in one of our suburbs near me that had a similar approach. He let all the native plants grow wild around his house because he liked living near nature. His neighbours complained to a local council that it was unsightly and a fire hazard. The council sent him notices to trim it all back and clean it up. He refused them all. The council set a date that they would come and remove all trees, plants and shrubs and charge him for the cost involved. He contacted a local environmental agency that came and inspected his property, and they found 2 species of endangered birds had nested there. One was assumed extinct. That's crazy, what? Whoa. After that, there was nothing that they could do as the birds were protected by law. This next post is by Finn008. Don't care about people calling me on your old number? I'll sort it. This was about 10 years ago. I had just moved to Australia and gotten a new phone, but as it turns out, my number was someone else's old number. Every other week I'd get calls by a tradesperson who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with building project ABC. Every time I explained at length that they got the wrong number, and quite often, folks on the other end were absolutely rude, or thought I was taking the pee and insist I answered their questions or show up on site now. I was over it, so I googled my own number and did some digging and eventually found out the guy who had my number before, then his new number, and I called him. I politely explained my dilemma, pointed out that there were 2 websites still having his old, my now new number, and if he could please change this and let his contacts know about his new number and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By that time, I had used my number for work, visa applications, and landlords and friends, and changing it would be a huge pain. I explained all of that. Well, of course, he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, I don't give an F, mate. That's not my effing problem. Get effed, sort out your own S, mate. Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to do just that only a few weeks later. I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy telling me he was early and demanding to know where I wanted to put the sand down and how to get in. I asked what sand, and was told he had a truckload full of sand, as ordered, and no one was on site and it was all fenced off. Very briefly did I think about launching into my explanation, but I was tired and over it, and then realised the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty. "Mate, it's all good. Dump it all right in the driveway, front of the fence. We'll sort it out when we get there." The guy said, "You sure, mate? It's a lot of sand." Me? "Absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot." "Alright then, boss," and hangs up. Well, I go to bed, snoozing for another hour with a big smile, until my phone rings again and I see it's old mate with his new number who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper, and he doesn't waste any time launching into a series of swear words, and how he has no access to the site, and then he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand, and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, "You told me to sort this out myself. This is me sorting it out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate." He was fuming, called me a few more choice words, promising to find me and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet really quickly after that. What a coincidence. And I never got another call again. I still have my number, and every time I see a truck with sand, I chuckle to myself thinking of this guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a fair few hours of labour because he was a douche and couldn't be bothered sending a few texts. Classic Australian moment. This next post is by Dumpsterfire15. Don't like it? Leave. This happened today. My husband and I have been car shopping as I was in an auto accident at the beginning of summer. Our car was totaled in the accident and it has been a long process. We finally decided on the automobile we wanted, got all of our paperwork completed, and had all our financing all worked out. Nice! All we needed to do was sign the paperwork and drive away. The dealership is 90 minutes from our house, so we took the kids out of school early and my husband took off work after lunch. We wanted to make sure we were home in time to keep our typical school night schedule going. We get to our dealership at our agreed upon time, and we did one more test drive and were ready to sign everything. Then the game started. All of a sudden the finance office wasn't ready for us. Then after an almost 2-hour wait, they were ready. The finance person started by trying to upsell us on all the add-ons dealers try to sell you. We told her we didn't want anything extra, we just wanted to look at the numbers, read the paperwork, sign it all and head out. Due to our wait, we had a limited amount of time to get this done and still be able to get home in time for the kids' bedroom routine. The first thing she does is pull out a different set of numbers than we were originally given and agreed to. All of a sudden, there is a dealership fee for selling us a car at this time of year, nearly $1,000 for this nonsense. Then she states that if we don't like the fee, we could leave, as they have people begging to buy cars from us. So, my husband and I stood up to leave. She then tells us we can't leave, as she has already printed the forms. I laugh at her and told her to go out and get one of those beggars to buy it. So far, the finance person has called twice and the salesperson has called 4 times. I guess they weren't expecting someone to go that far and then actually walk away. ETA, I didn't want to update sooner as I really wanted to finish this situation before visiting this. The truly terrible car dealership was in Illinois. We went with an auto sales company that was a no negotiation, no hassle and no hidden fees company. Honestly, getting my insurance updated took longer than anything in their office. I love this top comment. It says, "Love this, happened to me too. Walked out right before ink hit paper. GM called me to apologize for the finance person's behavior. Too bad, so sad." Someone replied and said, "So what new and better deal for me did you call to offer as an apology?" They then respond with, "Long story short, good point, he didn't present a better offer." That's strange. It's just greed. This next post is by a deleted user. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Goes both ways. My new manager at work is one of those people that absolutely has to be in control. Even when you're exceeding every scorecard measure, keeping your head down, not putting a toe out of line, she still asks you to come to a meeting room and discuss some minor issue or another. Recently, she pulled me into a meeting to discuss me being late from work. Protocol is to call in, say we'll be late, then submit a schedule adjustment request when we arrived. She accused me of not calling in or submitting a request, but was able to prove I did. Only instead of leaving it at that, she insisted I now needed to call her and explain why I was late. That's not the process, I told her, and she said she was making a new one. So now I call her at 6 AM on my day off to let her know if I'm going to be late. She also had a meeting with me because my scorecard for a stat was 99 out of 100 with a target of 50. She had to point out the 1 out of 100 I missed. She also did the same for a handling time issue where I'm hitting an average of 600 seconds with a target of 1500. She needed to tell me about a call I took too long on. Suffice to say, complaints have been raised to her new manager. Following an incident where she was asked to follow up on something for me and claimed if it's not in writing it didn't happen, I've been asking for everything in writing and repeat that mantra back to her when she claims to have told me something. Last week, she asked me to see her after my call. I walked over and she wasn't there, so I went back to my desk. She asked me why I didn't stay around, and I reminded her of the time she put in writing, that I wasn't to spend more than 1 minute waiting for her if she asked to see me, and I was to go back to my desk to take calls, not wasting time. She asked me to come over again, and when I did, she wasn't there. This repeated twice more before my shift was over. Each time I documented. Logged out at 14:35 PM. Came to your desk, you were not there, spent 45 seconds waiting, returned to desk and took another call at 14:38 PM in chat. She messages me to ask what time I finish. I tell her it was 2 minutes prior and she says we can catch up now. I tell her that if my shift is over, I'll ask if she'll approve an overtime pay for an out of hours meeting. She tells me not to be silly and it'll just take 10 minutes. I refuse and say if I don't get paid, we can do it tomorrow when I'm being paid. She's typing, then not, then typing, then not, choosing her words. I know she's angry at being challenged, and she decided to employ one of the tactics she used when she managed a team for a company where this was standard practice. Okay, well, if you'd like to go home now, I can always make it a formal meeting. A formal meeting, where I work, is code for a meeting with HR, documented on your record for misconduct and repeated issues. She thinks she's won. Not a problem, make a formal meeting, ensure I have 24 hours notice, send a formal invite, and I'll bring a support person along with me. I log out and leave, but not before grabbing screenshots and saving a copy of the chat logs. Next day, she's called my bluff and has a meeting scheduled. I send it to my union rep and she comes in on the day. HR sits down with us and opens with, "So today we're here to discuss some concerns. Your team leader asked you to attend an off-the-cuff catch-up 3 times and for some reason you refused?" I quickly clarify on what actually happened. My manager claims otherwise and I repeat her mantra. If it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Then I supply receipts, her demands to put things in writing, her chat, my timestamps, my call logs, and her message to me afterwards. My union rep stares at the two of them with a small smile and asks, "So do you want to maintain the position that employees should attend meetings unpaid and that misconduct investigations are a good use of resources if they refuse?" HR said that there may have been a miscommunication and that I could return to work. I have it put in writing that I am not accused of any misconduct and have been cleared of any false accusations with nothing documented on my staff file. Yesterday, my team was advised that our team leader had decided to pursue opportunities outside of the company, and we were getting a new team manager. That's crazy. Yeah, pursue opportunities. Yeah, I'm sure that's what it was. And anyway, I think that's going to be it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the stories in r/MaliciousCompliance. Let me know what you'd like to listen to next in the comment section below. And also, hit that subscribe button with your left middle finger because I post new Reddit content every single day. If you don't have a left middle finger, try your left foot. There are two videos on the screen, one of which is for the most recent video, and another is for the video the YouTube algorithm thinks you'll want to watch next. My name is Trey, this was Reload Reacts, and I will see you in the next video.